All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to our spotlight session on security and trust. My name is Rob Sadowski, and I lead security product marketing here at Google Cloud. I'm also going to be joined by several colleagues who will be coming on and showing you various other things during the course of our session. So at Google Cloud, security is one of our primary design criteria, and it's one of our biggest focus areas for product innovation. And when we think about security, this is the organizing framework that we're going to use for the rest of our talk. We think of it as falling in three broad areas. The first is security of our cloud. This is how we build security capabilities, many of which you get by default into our cloud infrastructure. The second is security in our cloud. So these are the capabilities that you have that you can configure to help protect your users, help protect your data, help protect your applications when you're using and take advantage of our cloud services. And finally, we talk about security anywhere. This is how we work to bring the best of Google's security capabilities to you, whether you're on or off our cloud platforms. So again, we're going to use this framework to guide the rest of our session. But before we get into some of our announcements and delve down into this in a little more detail, I want to reiterate some of the key points that Thomas and Suzanne made in the keynote this morning, because they're important and they also provide helpful context for what we're going to go into next. So our cloud is designed to fully empower European organizations with your strict data security and privacy requirements and preferences. And really any other organization around the world who shares those same values, shares those same priorities around security and privacy. So with the capabilities that we offer or that we're introducing, you can be confident that you can store your data inside a European region, that you can prevent your data from being moved outside that region, outside of Europe, that you can prevent it from being accessed from outside of Europe with some of our controls. In terms of transparency, we really feel that we can build trust with you through transparency. And so you can require approval before cloud admins access your data. And you can see when that data happens in those very rare occasions, and mostly this is often initiated when you initiate support requests or other things like that. You can see what was the reason, where the administrators are located, and why that access actually happened. And finally, in terms of control, you're going to hear a lot about what you can do to really take control over your data and over your configurations. So especially when it comes to data and it comes to encryption, you can manage your own encryption keys, you can store your own encryption keys outside of Google, and you could deny Google the ability to decrypt your data and maintain the ultimate and be the ultimate arbiter of access to that data. We're going to delve down into those products, show you how they work, and really get into that a little bit more. So first, let's start by getting to some of the security innovation that we've made available to you of our cloud. And so it starts with our infrastructure foundation. This is where it all begins. If we don't have a strong foundation, everything you put or build on top of it is going to be at risk. So we're focused on defense in depth, at scale, by default, as much as possible. So for example, all of our hardware at Google Cloud and Google that you run on is purpose-built and designed by our own engineers to our specs, both in terms of security and other characteristics of it. We employ a custom-designed chip, our Titan chip, that serves as a hardware root of trust to ensure that no untrusted software can run on our infrastructure. Identities, both users and machines and services, are all strongly authenticated inside this infrastructure. The data that's stored on our infrastructure is automatically encrypted at rest by default without you having to do anything, and your data in transit to our services are also always encrypted. And finally, we have a dedicated operations team, right? Part of shared responsibility that works to detect threats, run this infrastructure, respond to incidents 24/7 by 365. And we undergo regular, independent, third-party verification and audits to examine the controls that we have in our data center, in our infrastructure, and our operations. And these certifications include the most widely recognized, internationally accepted security standards. So things like ISO, things like SOC controls, other capabilities like that. And we also provide documentation for you on how you can use and configure our products and services to help you meet various compliance requirements around the world, meet your obligations. And so some recent additions that we have focused here on the European region are TISAC certification for the auto industry here in Europe. It's FINMA certification for financial institutions in Switzerland. It also is HDS certification, so we can host healthcare data in France. In the US, if you operate there, we added documentation for NIST 800.34 and have an authorization to host DISA information level 2 information. And finally, if you're operating in Singapore, we know a lot of financial institutions here in London also operate in Singapore. We added OSPAR certification for G Suite, and we published documentation for GCP in accordance with the Monetary Authority and the Association of Banks guidelines. So you can, as you can see, if you've been with us for a while or been seeing what we're doing, this list keeps growing, keeps expanding over time. Really is based on a lot of your input for what we do. So with that, we're going to transition to describing some of the newest updates for security in the cloud. And I'd like to bring up my colleague Jess, who's going to start with some of the updates for Google Cloud Platform. So Jess, take it away.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the new improvements in security in our cloud. These are all of the configurations that you have at your disposal to create your own security posture in GCP. The first exciting announcement we have in this space is the external key manager. So you saw this a little bit earlier in the keynotes. The data inside of GCP is always encrypted by default at rest, and of course you have key management for your applications. We give you a lot of options in terms of how you handle your keys. You can use our Cloud KMS, which will create and manage and rotate those keys for you. You can bring your own keys, you can use our HSMs, and now to that roster we're adding the ability to have a completely external third-party key manager. So we have seamless integration with a variety of the most popular key management tools out there, Fortanix, Thales, Ionic, Unbound, and Equinix. So you get to choose which key management solution is right for you. You might already have one on-prem, but the really important thing is that this really takes the key management function and the ability to decrypt data out of the hands of Google entirely. So I'd like to bring up Il-Sung Lee to give us a quick sneak peek at how this will work.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Il-Sung Lee. I'm the product manager for this wonderful thing that we're calling External Key Manager. And so hopefully you saw the keynote this morning. And it's been the labor of love that I'm super happy that we can actually talk about today. So let me give you a really, really quick just let me unlock my machine. Let me give you a really quick rundown of how this will work. And I promise to keep the demo really short and sweet. So first of all, how many people here use KMS or are familiar with the UI? OK, that's great. So if you look right now, I will take like a keyring that I've already created. It doesn't really matter what it is. But the thing that you're going to notice is that you are going to see the fact that there's going to be new versions with the actual keyring itself. So if I just basically turn on the debug panel, it's on. And then I actually go back to versions. And then I go back to create key. Then what you're going to see is that the UI is a little bit different now, right, than what you're used to. So we now have this new radio button here that says externally managed key. So when you select this, you're saying to our KMS system that I want to use a key that's outside the Google Cloud. And the way that you accomplish this is that you basically have to do a little bit of negotiation with the external key manager using the service account to actually give them authorization or to authorize the service account to access a key. And then they'll give you back a URI. The URI is the endpoint for the key itself. And so, for example, I already have a key that's already created in Ionic. And I just put the URI in here and I create. Oh, I have to give it a name. So like test 4 or whatever. It doesn't really matter. And I create this, and then the key has been created, and you'll see that it shows up as an external key here. Okay. Now, you can use a key for, like Jess said, with BigQuery and GC CMake. And I've already set up a BigQuery instance with using that key to actually encrypt the data. So if I run I run the query, it's going to show that the results that says, hello world, external key manager is amazing, right? Now, let me go to the Ionic dashboard. And in here, you'll see that I set up a policy that disables a key, okay? And so if I enable this policy, that is going to make the key no longer available. So Ionic will actively, disallow any kind of key request to actually do encryption or decryption. And I try running this again. It says that the request cannot be fulfilled, the external key is not available. So, think about that. That's a pretty powerful story, right? So I use a system outside of Google to now say that you can't access or run this query because you can't decrypt the data at rest. And of course, if I go back and I just basically, disable a policy, so in other words, enable a key, then you'll see that if I run this, that it comes back. Okay? So that was a short demo by External Key Manager.
Cool.
Oh, and one last thing. Sorry. Also, I know a lot of you are using Cloud HSM, and so a couple of things I want to announce is that Cloud HSM now is available in all regions around the world and every multi-region except global, and also that that the key import feature, if you're not aware, is now GA. So go nuts with that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The other really interesting feature that we announced today, or we referred to today in the keynote, was key access justification. So this is something that can be paired up with the external key manager and together create a really powerful story. So if you're familiar with the transparency that we do, we were the first cloud vendor, and I think still the only cloud vendor, that provides access transparency into all of the requests that are made to access your data in any way, shape, or form. And then back in April, we announced the ability to do access approvals, which meant that you got the ability to allow or deny who gets access when those requests come along. So this is an extension of that, another industry first. Key access justifications, every time there is an access request to your data, we'll give you a full detailed justification of why that request was made and who has made that request. And then you have full approve or deny rights to grant or deny access for that request. So this is paired up with the access transparency and external key management, gives you really, really tight control, much further tight control around the access to your data and decryption of your data than any other cloud provider can give you today. All right, moving on to Cloud Security Command Center. So the Command Center went GA in April at the Next event in San Francisco. And since then, there are thousands and thousands of our customers around the world using Command Center. We are today announcing that we are building a premium edition of Command Center. So that will leverage the standard edition that we have already and provide additional functionality on top of that. There's three main areas of functionality we're going to provide. The first one is we're going to use Google's own threat intelligence in order to find and mitigate threats in your environments in the cloud. We're going to provide vulnerability detection and mitigation, and we're also going to be able to find misconfigurations in your own cloud workloads and deployments and help you fix those things. So I'll give you a little bit of a preview into some of these things. Two of the components inside of Cloud Security Command Center Premium are now in public beta and are widely being used by a lot of our customers. If you haven't seen them or aren't using them, you might want to look at those. They're available to anybody today. Security Health Analytics is the first one. So misconfigurations are the largest cause of breaches out there in the world today, both on-prem and in cloud environments. So Security Health Analytics helps our customers by finding and helping mitigate any misconfigurations that exist in your environment. We do this broadly across dozens and dozens of different misconfiguration types, and we also now have support for CIS benchmarking, where we are supporting a specific standard and keeping you in compliance with that standard. Some of the misconfigurations that we find, publicly exposed buckets that should be private is probably the most common source of misconfiguration that leads to breaches. We find those for you. We'll find exposed credentials. We'll find overly permissive firewall rules and help you tighten up your firewall rule configurations. We'll find lots of places where logging and monitoring aren't necessarily turned on, where you could have better visibility and security if you activated those monitoring capabilities. On the VM side, places where IP forwarding is enabled and doesn't need to be, creating a hole that doesn't need to be there. Private cloud API access not being enabled. There's a ton of stuff on GKE clusters. Some of the things that are really prevalent are showing you where things are disabled that provide better security, like private clusters, network policies, IP aliases. We have multiple places where we'll find where authorization systems are activated but don't necessarily need to be, and those provide gaps for access as well. And then on the CIS side, we worked with CIS, the organization, recrafted a lot of the CIS benchmarking and updated everything, and now we are supporting full CIS scanning. So on an ongoing basis, we'll tell you if you are up to snuff with CIS benchmarks and what you need to change if not. So we're going to be adding all kinds of other certifications, both security certifications and regulatory certifications in this product as well, to help monitor and make sure you're in compliance with those. The other product, which is now in public beta, is event threat detection. So event threat detection takes all of the logs across your entire GCP environment, aggregates those for you, and runs them all through a detection pipeline in near real time in order to be able to use all of Google's threat intelligence, same thing, same threat intelligence we use to protect ourselves internally, we are using in this solution to find and mitigate threats in your environment. So with that, we'll move on to our wait, actually, the types of things you find. I'm going to bring up Tim in 1 second. So in this initial version, malware, cryptocurrency mining, phishing, IM abuse, and anomalous use for IM, outgoing DDoS attacks, brute force attacks, leaked credentials, hijacked accounts, and compromised machines. So this is all the stuff that the product can do today out of the box. These configurations are really literally as easily as flipping a switch and turning these things on. And we'll continue to build out new detections as we go pretty substantially over the course of next year. So now I actually want to bring my good friend Tim Peacock up to give you a quick demo.
Thanks so much for that, Jess. Hi, folks. I'm Tim Peacock, and in 1 sec, I'm going to make sure that our system is set up to actually be vulnerable, and we're looking good. So SSH Brute Force is one of the most common ways we see cloud instances get popped today. So I'm going to log out of this instance, and now we're going to SSH Brute Force our way into it. This is an attack that's been around since SSH has been around, but we see it today in cloud. People deploy an instance, it's exposed to the internet, and people are deploying instances with misconfigurations, weak configurations, and it's one of the most common ways we see things get popped. And it's not as if you're being targeted, it's just part of the background radiation of the internet. So we've built within event threat detection a mechanism to identify these attacks in near real time as they're occurring. By taking the logs off of your instances, aggregating them in Stackdriver, and pulling them into ETD, security teams are able to identify these threats in very close to real time. So what you're seeing, oh, don't you guys hate it when your phone rings in the middle of a presentation? It's PagerDuty. I should answer that.
PagerDuty alert. You have one triggered incident on GCP security services. The failure is SSH Brute Force detected. Press 4 to acknowledge.
So that was that finding that just happened being triggered all the way through to PagerDuty and ringing my phone here on the Wi-Fi. So I can show you what that looks like here in Security Command Center. This is our Security Command Center dashboard, and I will refresh the page so we've got the latest stuff. Security Command Center brings together information about your assets, your threat findings, and your vulnerability findings. And so we'll scroll down into ETD and pull up the latest and greatest threat findings from event threat detection. This is a detail view for this SSH Brute Force finding. You can see that it was discovered just now at 2:12 p.m. You can see the name of the asset here is victim, so that we know what we're talking about. We can see which user was compromised. It was the admin account. So your security responders, when they get this alert, can quickly determine who it was that got popped on their side, whether it's an account they care about, and who they should go call about whether they actually just fat-fingered their login a bunch of times. We've got a bunch of other useful information in here, including the identities of the logs that were involved in the detection and how it was detected. Now, you might say that's great, but how do I get proactive and how do I find these things before they bite me? And so that's where Security Health Analytics comes in. And we can click in, and we can see we've got a special vulnerability dashboard that we just released a couple weeks ago that shows you in one place all of the vulnerabilities that we've detected across your organization. In this case, we've filtered the display only to look at the victim project. And we can sort by status and see which types of vulnerabilities are present in this environment. And we can see that, indeed, there's an open SSH vulnerability. So findings are available here both by name and by reference to the CIS benchmark that they're related to. So we're very proud to announce that this is CIS certified to find CIS 1.0 benchmark vulnerabilities in GCP. We can click in, see the details of what exactly this vulnerability has. We understand that many of your users are new to Google Cloud, new to working on cloud vulnerabilities. So not only do we produce these findings, we also populate them with information that describes the vulnerability and describes how you can, more or less in one click, clean this up. So, thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you. All right, so let's look at some of the network security improvements that we've got. Cloud Armor, which has traditionally provided you with load balancing and DDoS capabilities, now has web application firewall functionality built in. So there's three main aspects of that. The first one is you have default protections, which are built in for OWASP top 10 type risks. So you've got things like cross-site scripting and SQL injection can be prevented by just clicking a button and turning on the defaults. The second piece is there are custom rule capabilities, so you can build your own custom rules. There's a pretty robust custom rule language that you can use, and you can specify all kinds of different parameters like location or times that it should be active, or the types of machines it should operate on, et cetera. And then the last thing is that there's a preview mode. So before you push all of these rules into production, you want to make sure that nothing is going to blow up. So preview mode gives you the ability to push to production with the assurance that things are going to work well when they get there. The other big thing that was also mentioned in the keynote is packet mirroring. So packet mirroring is now in beta. The really important thing here is that a lot of our customers want to install IDS systems. They have other security controls like firewalls that they want to tie into. They have application monitoring capabilities. All of these things require access to all of the data that's on the wire. So now you can specify all data or some sub-portion of that data that's on the wire will get mirrored out to a third-party device. So we've got 10 packet mirroring partners that we're launching with that all have really nice seamless integrations into GCP packet mirroring. Awake, Checkpoint, Cisco, Corelight, cPacket, ExtraHop, Flowmon, Ixia, NetScout, and Palo Alto Networks. So this is only the beginning for us, but having really easy tie-ins where you can just drop these things in and they can work in an automated fashion has been really nice for a lot of our customers. That leads into the rest of our security partners. So we have been broadening our security partnerships very widely over the course of 2019. These are just some of the people that we are working with. There's a much broader set of names in the total security partnership group, but these are some of the folks that we've been working really closely with to create security solutions inside of GCP. So these people are tightly knit into the GCP infrastructure. Super important for us because as more and more of our customers are bringing more workloads into GCP, having all of the security partners that you know and love, either on-prem or in other clouds, with you is super important. So, with that, let me bring up Karthik. We're going to talk through the other half of security in the cloud, G Suite, identity, and access.
Thank you, Jess. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karthik. I lead security, identity, and administration for G Suite. When we think about G Suite, obviously our end users love working on G Suite. They think it's easy to collaborate. But it's really important for us to think about all of you and think about your admins. So we think about adding value along 3 dimensions. The first is really about managing access. The second is about protecting your users, your devices, and the data that comes with it. And last but not the least, really ensuring compliance. So let's dive in, and let me just give you a bunch of updates that we are doing in each of those areas to make sure that G Suite is secure in your organization. The first thing that we want to talk about is the Advanced Protection Program for the enterprise. This is something that's going GA. Can I just get a quick show of hands? How many of you are familiar with the Advanced Protection Program? It's available for consumers as well. All right, I see quite a few show of hands. It's been used in the past on the consumer side to protect like journalists and civilians and other potential attack targets. Now, what we are doing is bringing that same degree of protection for the enterprise by making it enterprise ready. This means that the high-risk accounts that are in your organization, you can now enroll them in the Advanced Protection Program for the enterprise, and then 3 things kick in. First, we require those users to use our security keys. Security keys are standards compliant. They are the highest degree of phishing-resistant protection that you can provide for your users. Phishing is the #1 attack vector. The second thing that we do is we automatically start blocking third-party, high-risk app access into your organization. So we know what's bad for your users, and we automatically protect them. And third, we enroll these users in enhanced email scanning. Again, email is the #1 attack vector. Let's give them the enhanced scanning because you have identified that these users are high risk. Remember, when these users get compromised, that's how the hacker masquerades as that user and then gets access to the data, causing havoc in your organization. Something in addition to advanced protection program for enterprise is what we are also announcing is enhanced app access controls. So the #1 reason how an application gets access to data from another application is through OAuth controls. How many of you are familiar with OAuth? You must have seen the experience when an app comes in and says, hey, can I get access to your contacts or something? And most users just click yes, and that's how all the data leaks and goes into that other app, right? So you can now have OAuth app access controls and, again, tighten the security posture in your organization. The next thing we want to talk about is tighten security keys. So this is Google's version of security keys. They completely meet all the standards. It's built by Google. It's something that we've announced earlier in the summer, but what's new is a new form factor, which is the USB-C form factor. We know a lot of the newer modern laptops really support USB-C, so we wanted to support that out of the box. Another nice, cool benefit that we are supporting is if you have an Android phone running version 7 or higher, you can now use that phone as a security key. I use it all the time on my personal Gmail account. It's really convenient. And if you haven't tried it, I recommend you try it today. OK, the next thing we want to talk about is security automation for all of you and your IT admins, right? You saw the demos for Security Center. We have something similar for G Suite. Our North Star vision is to really give you this cohesive, closed-loop lifecycle around prevent, detect, and remediate, right? So as an admin, I want to set the proactive policies that we think can prevent leaks from happening in the organization. But you don't get everything right. So you got to make sure you detect the drift that may have happened. And last but not the least, you want the investigation and the tools so you can remediate and get to the right security posture. So one of the research surveys showed us that there are about 5,000 alerts on average that an admin team gets. And almost half of it never gets investigated because there's so much going on. The admins are drowning with all these events that are coming in. An easy way to scale up and manage by keeping your team size flat, but at the same time, keep up with everything that's going on is by adding automation. So what we've done is allowed for admins to now set automated actions that they can take when a particular event happens. So if this is a common pattern and you're taking a common action, you don't have to go manually do that. You can have G Suite do that for you. Last but not the least, when we enable security automation, we really think we can get back to that prevent, detect, remediate lifecycle. It's tough to get it right, but this will hopefully get us closer. If you like the Security Center demo for GCP, I'd encourage you to try this out for G Suite. Let's talk a little bit about devices, right? Most users, there was a time when I saw a lot of people carry like 2 phones, for example. There was the work phone and the personal phone. And the reason they wanted those 2 phones is because users hate agents being installed on those devices. And admins are like, I need more agents because I need more information. So there was this classic tension that was building up between admins wanting deeper insights into what's happening on those devices and users resisting because it usually compromised their end user experience. So one of the things that Google's done really well on the mobile platforms and now that we are extending to desktop is what we call essential desktop security. This allows every G Suite user to automatically get logged in. No agent is pushed on the device. The admin gets insight into what are these platforms that the users are running on the desktop, what kind of policies they may have on that device. As an example, do they have a PIN code set on that platform or not? And being able to turn on lightweight security and control to increase the security posture of those devices without getting into the way of how users work, right? So we want to preserve the usability while increasing security. It's really hard to do that, and Google has repeatedly done that right. We'd love for you to try this out as well. Next, let's talk about context-aware access. This is the big announcement that we are making here at London Next, right? Super quickly, how many of you have heard about BeyondCorp? Okay, I see a few hands. So just think about your traditional on-premises-based world. If you went to work and your applications and your files are on the corporate network, then it makes sense. So your access management systems that you have make sense. But what happens when the internet is your new network? Your apps are in the cloud, your files are in the cloud. What is a security and access mechanism that would work that keeps your security posture high while preserving end-user access and simplicity? So we have something called context-aware access. Google initially came out with a model called Beyond Corp in 2011. It was a set of research papers, but we've been working on solutionizing and productizing this work for a while, and we've finally excited to announce GA of the first version of context-aware access for G Suite. So here's what you can now do, right? The security posture of different applications within G Suite is different. For example, if your users are in a coffee shop and they just want to launch a Hangouts meeting and get on a video call with someone, they can probably do that with no real security risk. But if they are on some unsecured network and they're trying to access Google Drive to access a file, you may not really want that. So you can now offer granular controls where you can start looking at a few different things. Number one, what's the user state? Like, have they authenticated with just passwords or using a second factor auth, using security keys, things like that. Second, what is the state of that device? What do I know about the device? Is it a managed device? Is it a bring your own device? Things like that. And third is the context. Where are you accessing from? What are you trying to access? How sensitive is that resource that you're trying to access? So we use these combinations to make a dynamic runtime decision about whether that access should be allowed or not. Again, really simple for the end user and really high security for the organization. Last but not the least, it's really important for us to meet customers where they are. This is a key mantra for us, meet customers where they are. All of you have made significant investments into a partner and vendor ecosystem. Jess talked about this as well. It's really important for us to work well with those partners. The first thing that we're doing here is this Beyond Corp Alliance, where we have a devices API. And what this does is that if an organization is using another endpoint management solution for security, we can combine the signals that we get from that device along with the signals that the partner is giving us in order to make better and more enhanced access control decisions. We have partnerships with 5 different partners today, and like Jess said, we are continuing to grow this ecosystem. We have partnerships with Lookout, with Checkpoint, with Symantec, with Palo Alto, and with AirWatch, right? So their signals feed into our signals, and then we can make better decisions. And I just want to close with one last thing. It's really important for us not just to focus on the end user, but to focus on the admin as well. We think that we can get security right without compromising the end user experience. We do that by comprehensively giving you abilities to manage the access, to protect users, their devices, and the data, and by ensuring compliance. With that, let me invite Jess back on stage to talk about security anywhere. Thank you. Hey.
All right.
Thanks.
Me again. Hi. So, security anywhere. The concept here is that Google, as a whole, we have all of these really interesting, innovative, differentiated technologies that we use internally. And we're trying to bring a lot of those things to you, our Google Cloud customers. Not just within the context of Google Cloud alone, but also across your entire environment. So on any cloud that you choose to deploy on, for your on-prem environment, so the whole hybrid package. So during our keynote, you saw the Chronicle demo, the backstory demo. Chronicle was a moonshot that was spun out about a year ago, has been brought back into GCP, and brings some really interesting, innovative solutions into the Google Cloud toolset. You saw a demo of Backstory this morning, Backstory and VirusTotal, 2 really interesting technology products which bring threat intelligence, investigation, and threat hunting capabilities into GCP. VirusTotal is the largest repository of malware in the world. It's got billions of known files and all of the associated metadata with those files. And that can be used sort of as an overlay on top of the activity that you're seeing inside of your own network. Backstory, so VirusTotal you can think about as sort of the threats in the world. This is everything that's out there that's known and how it overlays. And then Backstory is the threats inside your own network. So the really amazing thing in Backstory is it takes all of the data that you've got out there, can put all of that in one place, and we sort of call it planet scale or Google scale, amounts of data. It can normalize that data, index that data, and make that data searchable for you with less than a second of latency in that query. So this is radically different than the experience that most people have today. If you are a security analyst, you may take hours, sometimes even days, to complete a query across large amounts of data. So just having this foundation of being able to have all of your data at a moment's notice access is just very different. So on top of that, we've built all of these nice curated interfaces that guide people through a very quick investigation flow to get from A to false positive or true positive. And then the pricing scheme that we put on top of this, we really did on purpose to be radically different as well. So rather than charging you per gig that is ingested, we charge you by the amount of employees in your company just to get some sizing, but that really encourages people to put all of the data inside of Backstory. A lot of folks today will only put a very small fragment of the data available to them into the tools for analysis, and as such, they may be missing a lot of threats in their environment. So on top of these two products, we have a few new services that are just, they are in beta today and closing in very rapidly on GA. How many folks here are familiar with safe browsing? Yeah, more than I would have thought. Okay, that's great. There are a couple of foundational technologies here for these three services. One of them is safe browsing, the other is reCAPTCHA. So if you're not familiar with safe browsing is a Google technology that scours the world looking for malware and phishing sites. And as it crawls the web, it analyzes all of the URLs with our own ML and behavioral analytics to determine whether they are phishing and malware sites. If it finds a site, it adds them into our database. That database is updated very, very regularly, every half hour. And it's embedded inside of Chrome and Firefox, Safari Mobile, and 2,000 other developer tools. So when something gets added to safe browsing, over 4 billion devices will never see that phishing site or malicious URL. So we've leveraged that, and we've leveraged reCAPTCHA, which is protecting about 3 million websites out in the world today, to create these three solutions. First one is WebRisk, the WebRisk API. So what this does is it detects malicious URLs on your website and in your client applications. Let's say you've got a customer support area, or a chat application, or you're posting content in any way, or you have something that builds websites. Anything that is content-oriented where a URL may appear, you can give us that URL that was provided by an end user or somebody inside of your organization, and very, very quickly we'll tell you whether that URL is a phishing or malicious URL. So you're never going to expose your users to URLs that are dangerous to them. The second one is reCAPTCHA Enterprise. So you're probably familiar with the reCAPTCHA solution. You've probably checked on lots of pictures of cats and coffee cups and things like that. The newest version of reCAPTCHA is actually invisible. So there is nothing to do, there's no CAPTCHA to fill out, and we're leveraging that for reCAPTCHA Enterprise with a whole bunch of new features and functionality. So we have mobile support in reCAPTCHA Enterprise for the first time. We have the ability to have built-in two-factor authentication. We have additional signals which we use. So there are all these nice new features built into an enterprise-facing package, and that is really for B2C customers. So if you have consumers who are using your services, you can put reCAPTCHA Enterprise in. There's no interaction with that end user, but you can build in protections for fraud, for bot detection, spam, and abuse using reCAPTCHA Enterprise. So we're really excited about this. And lastly, phishing protection. So here, you provide us with a brand kit for your company, and we will go scour the internet looking for matches for that brand kit. And we'll tell you whether we find malicious sites, phishing sites, et cetera, that are leveraging your brand and endangering your brand and your users. You can submit your own URLs to this. So if you have URLs that you believe may be phishing URLs that are impersonating you, we'll let you know. And then from there, rather than wait 4 to 6 weeks for a domain registrar to maybe or maybe not take down this site, by the way, at which point that phishing attack is long done and the attacker is long gone. We will add these to safe browsing, and 4 billion devices out there will be protected within half an hour or less. So a couple of really great user-facing solutions here. The last thing that I wanted to mention before we finish is OpenTitan. So this month in November, we announced the first ever open source silicon project that's building a highly transparent, high quality reference design for root of trust chips. So Rob mentioned in the beginning that at Google, we use something called a Titan chip. It's built into GCP servers, and it provides the physical root of trust for everything that's happening on that server. This design has been super successful for us and is extremely secure, much more secure than the average internet server. And as such, we wanted to make this available to the general public so that they too could have this type of security built into their chips. So OpenTitan not only provides the reference design to the world, but it also gives you a full certification process to make sure that your designs can be properly certified, and all of the materials and procedures in order to craft a successful chip of your own. We took a lot of care in the partners that we created for this. So Low Risk is a third-party program that is responsible for the community and for the project. ETH Zurich helped us design the chip. G&D provides mobile security in this space. They specialize here. Nuvoton on the silicon and Western Digital on the storage. So you kind of have all the pieces in the ecosystem to be successful in your own designs. This is really just Google trying to make the world a little bit safer, one server at a time. So with that, let's bring Rob back up to take us home.
Excellent. Thank you, Jess, and thank you all for sticking around. So we covered a lot of ground here today, and we brought a lot of capabilities to market this year. These next two slides highlight our major announcements at our earlier next conferences this year across GCP, across container security. We really didn't even talk much in this session. There are a couple of other deep dives that you can go check out, as well as across identity and across G Suite. We've been busy. We love it. You know, it's one of the great things about the cloud. You heard a little bit about this in the keynote this morning. The rapid pace of innovation, and in our case, security, that help us and help you keep up with the threat landscape, and especially what you're asking us for, your requirements. They drive so much of what we're doing here in this space. You know, how can we take what we're doing to help you increase your security posture on or off the cloud? And this work on security of the cloud and in the cloud and security anywhere has resulted in us being named a cloud security leader by industry analyst firm Forrester. So we were recognized by a leader in their recent data security portfolio vendors wave. The highest ratings of strategy for any vendor. You know, our focus on encryption, our focus on data discovery, our focus on analytics, things all kind of help on that. And that goes with our leader rating that they had given us in the past on cloud platform native security. Again, highest rating in terms of strategy. You can see it in this level of innovation and what we're doing and what we're bringing to market. And we're pleased that, you know, our efforts have also resulted in you know, your embrace of our technologies. Many organizations working with Google Cloud to protect their businesses. These are just the logos of the customers who recently shared stories about how they're using our security capabilities to help protect their business. You can see wide variety of sectors, regulated, public sector, other. You know, we see more trust in the cloud, we see more trust in us. Hopefully it's a result of what we're doing. And finally, because we're out of time, we can't possibly demo all this great stuff like Tim and Ilsung did on all that stuff. Here are some remaining sessions over the course of the next day, today and tomorrow, where you can see our security products featured. Come talk to us, come talk to our product managers, get into the details as much as you'd like to. So from all of us, we want to thank you for joining us today. Stay secure and have a great rest of Next.